Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets. Or you can subscribe to the channel and click that notifications button and get a notification whenever a new video is uploaded. Not much boxing going on at the moment. We've seen Manuel Charles' fight with Trevor Bryant be called off. Let's not even get into Don King and all that. But because there isn't much going on, I'm going to get back to doing some prospect watch videos. Back in the day, we used to do a lot of these and talk about guys that could potentially make waves on the world scene. We've spoken about different guys before they were known, before they were internationally known. Sergei Kovalev, William Monroe, who else? Loads. Chris Algieri, more recently George Kambosos Jr. when he was still domestic level. Anthony Crolla. So there have been a whole bunch of guys that many people didn't really know about, and we spoke about them and said these guys have the potential to make it to world level. So I'm going to continue with this sort of thing and discussing prospects, guys that no one really talks about. And a few of you have asked me about what I think about Andreas Katzourakis, who is a Greek middleweight boxer who has signed with Abel Sanchez, and he's developing somewhat of a reputation in the sort of scene around him, in the hardcore scene where he's based around him in the United States now. He's been training up in Big Bear, like I said. He's 6-0 with 5 knockouts. He has against opponents with a combined record of 64 and 42. So he's fighting against guys with winning records. He's not just going in there fighting a bunch of bums and blowing them away. As an amateur, he had a very impressive record. Not extensive, but impressive. It was 25-1 with 18 knockouts. Now, 18 knockouts out of 25 wins in the amateurs is quite impressive. Now, he didn't fight necessarily at the highest level in the amateur scene. He didn't go to the Olympics or anything like that. However, he did have a background in kickboxing, and perhaps that's why he didn't sort of excel at the amateur scene. He didn't look to, essentially, because he had 600 amateur bouts kickboxing. So that's where his background really lay. And he's since moved into boxing. His hero trainer was Abel Sanchez, and I guess he's achieving a dream now by working with him. His favorite ever middleweight was Marvin Hagler. And he's looking to emulate some of that success. So let's talk a little bit about him. Like I said, he's from Greece. Greece doesn't have a huge sort of tradition in the sport. Greece has had one heavyweight champion, I believe it was, many years ago, decades ago, turn of the century type stuff, I think. But since then, Greece hasn't really had a tradition in boxing. Greco-Roman wrestling, obviously, as you can tell from the name, Greco-Roman, is a Greek martial art. And additionally, kickboxing was really big in Greece. So boxing never really got a foothold as a popular sport. And so Greece hasn't really produced many boxers. There have been some world-class mixed martial artists and kickboxers. Mike Zambidis, who you would love to watch. Check him out on YouTube. He was the pound-for-pound #1 kickboxer in the world. Stan Longinidis was a tank of a heavyweight champion. He had thighs like tree trunks, that guy. He could kick his way through a tank. In fact, for those of you out there that are action movie fans, who might like Jean-Claude Van Damme, I'm sure many of you guys have seen the movie Kickboxer. Well, Kickboxer in the movie, his brother, if you remember, was a guy called Dennis Alexio, the one with really fast hands. He gave that little cameo of his brilliant hand speed, who fought Tong Po. I won't give anything away for you that love your action movies and haven't seen it. But Dennis Alexio wasn't just an actor. He was a world-class kickboxing champion. And I guess you could say the fury against AJ of the day was Alexio against Longinidis, and it's definitely worth watching that fight. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. I'm sure it must be on YouTube still, but check that out. But the point is, they've produced Kostas Philippou, a Greek Cypriot who was a world-class UFC middleweight. I think he was ranked 8th or something like that. Definitely top 8, maybe quite even higher than that. He was a world-class middleweight. So Greece has produced fighters in other martial arts, but not boxing really. It just doesn't have that tradition there. The Greeks that have sort of excelled are people of Greek origin in boxing. So, I mean, Mike Arnautis went to the US. He got to a decent level out there. Don the Bomb George, an Greek-American based out of Chicago. Michael Katsidis, of course, who was an interim champion who floored Marquez and was on his way potentially to winning that fight. And his brother had died recently, very recently. He was very close to his brother, and he always speaks about how he heard the commentators, I think Jim Lampley, he heard one of the commentators ringside say he's doing it for his deceased brother. at that point when he dropped Marquez, and he said at that point he just lost his mind, he lost focus, he lost his tactics, he was just overtaken by emotion and just sort of lost his mind in the way he approached the fight, which was a terribly sad sort of situation with Katzourakis. He sort of went on too long as well. He picked up an injury and carried on fighting. But there was him. There were the Evangelou brothers out of the UK. Chris Evangelou was very, very highly rated. Freddie Roach, Jesse Reed, Hall of Fame trainers, Joe Calzaghe. People were talking about him being a potential world champion because of his skill set. He even got invited to the Mayweather gym. He was training out there for a period of time. He was a really good fighter. And he got robbed on a couple of occasions, and they were genuine robberies. I mean, I was there on one of those nights, actually. I was there to see a Box Nation show, and he was on the undercard, and I saw him fight a 6-rounder, and he won pretty comfortably, 5-1, maybe 4-2, and they robbed him, basically. And there was a furore at ringside. I remember he went mad. And they actually walked away from the sport not long after. Him and his brother were just so unhappy with the politics. In fact, Andreas Evangelou, his brother, was still undefeated. I think he was 11-0 or something like that, but he was still undefeated when they walked away. So this wasn't just a case of, some sort of excuse. They were genuinely upset at the politics that were going on. In fact, Andreas Evangelou beat Ricards Bolotniks. Now, Ricards Bolotniks is the guy that's gone on to win the Golden Contract. He knocked him out. Andreas Evangelou knocked him out in the 4th round, and Bolotniks has gone on to become, he's ranked 12th in the world by BoxRec. Okay, he's beaten Hosea Burton, he's beaten Stephen Ward, he's beaten Serge Michel lately. So Patrick Mendy, he beat as well. It was quite a big deal for an undefeated fighter to just walk away because of the politics of the sport. I wonder if anyone would want to interview that guy one day. That would be a really interesting interview, in fact, to hear why an undefeated prospect, along with his very highly rated brother, would just walk away from the sport. Chris Evangelou's an actor now, I think. He was on the film The Gentleman with, what's his name? The director that did Snatch. Guy Ritchie. I had to Google that quickly. Yeah, Guy Ritchie. I saw someone tweet about that recently. I was like, wow. He looks like a cruiserweight now. He's put on a lot of muscle. But anyway, the point is, Greece's Greek fighters have been from other nations. There is a bit of a sort of a spawning, a genesis, I guess you could say, of boxing in Greece at the moment now. Different fighters seem to be coming through. You've got, like I said, Andreas Katzourakis. You've got Christina Linadatu, who was former world champion. She's a woman, obviously. She lost to Katie Taylor, and she lost fairly if you're talking about points. But if you're talking about an actual fight, as in who beat who up, she got the better of Katie in that regard. Now, obviously, that's not how boxing scored, but I'm just trying to explain this is a very tough woman. There's the other woman who's known as the Pink Tyson, who fell out of Eddie Hearn recently over being given an offer to fight for a world title, but it was really poor offer or something, and that caused a bit of a thing on social media. You've got Florian Marcu. Although Florian Marcu is a very popular Albanian fighter and he's very proud Albanian, he was based in Greece for many years. He lived in Greece and I think he was a kickboxer too in Greece. So he's come through that Greek, I guess you could say, boxing education system or culture. So Greek boxing is starting to produce some fighters now. George Kambosos obviously is of Greek origin and very proud of that, and he's fought in Greece already. So can we add Katsurakis to that list of fighters, or rather, where does he stack up in that list? Is this a guy that could make a big breakthrough under Abel Sanchez? Well, I watched a fight of his recently. It's hard to find boxing footage of him. There's more kickboxing footage of him that I've come across, but there is some, and one thing you have to say, he's obviously very, very heavy-handed. You could tell that from both his amateur record and his pro record so far. He's a heavy-handed fighter. He's a middleweight that walks you down. He's only 23 years old, so there's a future there. He walks you down, and he loves to throw a hook or two. And he fought, one of his impressive fights really was against Walter Wright in only his 4th fight. Now, Walter Wright is no spring chicken anymore. I think he was like 38 at the time or something like that. But he's still a very active fighter. And Walter Wright, of course, was in the Contender, and he's a wily old character. He'll make you think. And this is a guy that, not that long ago, beat Mark DeLuca, the guy that fought Kell Brook. He's also got a win over Darnell Boone. That was much longer ago. But obviously Darnell Boone's the guy that famously dropped Andre Ward. So, this is a guy that knows his way around the ring. and he beat him. But there were a lot of things that I thought he needed to work on. So let's discuss those a little bit. First and foremost, he's got quite a wide stance. And for me, when I was looking at that fight, I'm going to talk about what he was doing wrong there, and then what I've seen since then that shows me a progression, okay? So with that fight, like I said, he's very heavy-handed. He's very calm under pressure. When you're throwing punches at him, he'll have quite a high guard, and he'll literally just turn with shots and bring up his arm and just deflect them. He's comfortable. He doesn't look like he panics under pressure. With a lot of guys that are kickboxers and transition over to boxing, something I've spoken about in the past, because you're afraid of kicks that are coming up sideways to your head, you can't really slip shots, because if you slip a hook and walk onto a kick, you're going to get knocked out. So a lot of kickboxers are more about in and out, forward and back. That's how they use their distance control, rather than trying to slip a shot to come inside, because there's an extra element of threat when you're a kickboxer. So when they make that transition, they don't always have that upper head movement. That is I guess you could say a prerequisite for getting to the top if you want to be an aggressive sort of come forward fighter, or even if you don't, just the ability to slip a shot and counter is an important skill to develop. Well, a lot of the time, that isn't sort of guaranteed, I guess you could say, with a kickboxer. And you could see that with Katsurakis in the fight against Walter Wright. He's got quite a wide stance, he's quite upright. And to me, he looked almost like he was in two minds about what to do. Because he'd wait often for Wright to lead off, carry out his parrying and blocks, and then not punish him for it. There were other times when Walter Wright was just standing off, and he was also standing off. And then with his wide stance, he'd step in further and throw one powerful jab. And it was almost like, what are you actually trying to do here? He was winning the fight, he won the fight. But what are you trying to do here? Are you trying to... I mean, he was cutting off the ring well, so he was getting into positions, but are you waiting for him to throw shots so you can catch and counter? If so, why were you catching but not countering? Are you trying to walk the guy down and find an entry point? If so, when you're stepping in with that powerful jab, why weren't you really following anything up with it? Why were you coming in a straight line with a one-off shot and then stepping back, or even just throwing a one-off shot, staying there and not really building off that? Why wasn't he throwing a jab and then looking to come up, downstairs with a hook, or even upstairs with a hook, whatever it might have been? And when you're on the inside, to step to one side slightly, to create new angles, to create openings, to enable you against a very defensive-minded fighter who wasn't looking to do much. Why weren't you leading to try and create openings? Why weren't you the one that was why weren't you using any misdirection? You know, shaping up as though you were going to throw one shot to come with another. There wasn't much imagination. But you could see he was very, very heavy-handed. He was very calm under pressure. With straight shots, like I said, he was getting caught a little bit too much, perhaps because of that lack of head movement that you get from that kickboxing transition. With hooks, like I said, he was very comfortable catching them. So his defense was a lot better with wider shots than it was with straight shots. But you could see he was heavy-handed. He upped the tempo when he needed to. He was always in control. You could see he was heavy-handed. Even though they were one-off pot shots, you could see that heavy-handed style of his. But when I saw him, I thought, okay, I can understand a lot of people are excited because of the record and he's heavy-handed. And, you know, he's a very, very good interviewer. He's a very intelligent guy. You know, he's got a look that will transcend pretty well into TV as well. You know, he carries himself very, very well, put it that way. He speaks well and so on and so forth. Very intelligent, perceptive guy. He's not just some dumb brute. You know, he's a smart guy. But yeah, there were all these question marks. And I was just thinking, okay, people are more excited about the physical attributes rather than the skill set. Now, more recently, he fought Brandon Bowie. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce the name. B-A-U-E. Brandon Bowie, who very experienced fighter. At the time, he was 15-20, so he had a losing record, but an experienced fighter who's you know, been around the block on the scene as a journeyman. And what you saw is the implementation. I believe it was his first fight with Abel Sanchez. The implementation of trying to add something new to create openings of his own. Just before the knockout came, which was a really nice shot to the liver, he stepped forward, and you could see as he's come straight forward in a straight line, which is something, like I said, that he didn't do enough with Walter Wright. You could see him take a slight step out to the right. So he's coming in a straight line, takes a slight step out to the right, which leaves the center line in line with his shoulder rather than his head. Now, by creating that new angle, he's thrown a shot, got Boue to get into a defensive position, defensive stance, almost blinded him with that shot, stepping to the side, then he's able to go to work through that center line by creating a new angle. And it was a left hook to the liver that dropped Bowie. So you could see, he's starting to think more. And if Abel Sanchez can start to bring those elements together, getting him to think about how to create new angles, narrowing your feet slightly when you want to chase a guy down. When you're ready to go, that's fine to have your feet wider. If you want to lure a guy in, plant your feet, let go of big shots. That's good. But, be prepared to know what I need to do when I need to hunt, what I need to do when I need to counter, what I need to do when I need to be defensive. These are things that he's going to need to sort of continue to work on. He's a relative novice at 6 fights. So, he's got time. There's no doubt about it. And he's under great tutelage now. It'll be really interesting to see how he can develop. BoxRec have him ranked at 136th in the world after just 6 fights, which, it sounds like nothing, 136th in the world. But listen, after 6 fights, if you're getting yourself into that sort of position, who's to say where you'll be in another 5 fights? Where you're going to be in another 10 fights when you're hopefully 15-0, 16-0. So, this is a guy that people need to look out for. He's a tough guy, heavy-handed guy with martial art experience, not just boxing experience, that knocks people out and gets stoppages wherever he goes in any martial art. And he has been involved in martial arts, in kickboxing, since he was 5 years old. First, it was it was like a point system, a touch system. It's almost like it's almost like Taekwondo. So, and then from there, he's grown and moved on to semi-contact and then full contact. So, he's been a martial artist since he was a kid. So this guy knows how to fight. And if you can marry that with some of the more sort of technical intricacies that are unique to boxing, he's going to be a very, very dangerous guy. So look out for Andreas Katzourakis. Let me know if you've seen him and what you think of him. I'm going to bring another video very soon about Florian Marku, because he's made a lot of waves in the UK and he's very popular. There's a big Albanian community, of course, in the UK. He's also got the same management. Katsurakis has also got the same management team as Teofimo Lopez. So although he's yet to sign with a big promoter, he's got the right management team and a world-class trainer now behind him. With the right promotional outfit too, you could start seeing him on your TVs a lot sooner than you expect. Let me know what you think if you have seen him. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care and God bless.